Good morning and welcome to the Good Builder podcast.
Well,
Today, I have a really, really special guest. And in fact, it's a gentleman that I had the pleasure of working alongside for a few years. And I got to see how good he was as a leader and how he shaped a franchise. And he brought it over the ditch with a few of his team over here in Australia, and they're doing really well. Stonewood Homes is a builder that's built on a strong reputation for structure, consistency, and support. And I actually saw it with my own eyes while I was there. I'd seen firsthand how they support all of the network, how enjoyable it was as being part of the network. And now it's been pretty cool to see them come over to Australia and hang out with the likes of Sean Hewitt and the Sunshine Coast, who we had on the podcast yesterday, and he's flourishing here, in his local environment. This guy right here is fairly amazing. He introduced a lot of systems along with his team and a lot of support that I'd never seen in other franchise builders. And I used to work with one, and it is my pleasure to bring to the Good Builder podcast, Greg Somerville from Stonewood Homes, General Manager. How are you, mate?
I'm good. Thank you, Aaron. And thank you for allowing me to be on your podcast.
Oh, mate, you never had to ask for permission. I think we were chasing you. And, as I said, we were I'd worked with you in a previous business, and mate, it was an absolute pleasure. You're doing some amazing things over there. But mate, where are you at the moment? Because you've done something that no one's ever done here on the podcast. Is that head office there in Auckland?
Our support office in Auckland, right down here on the viaduct. And if I give you a
Look
little
at that.
around, it's a pretty unique office. And
Mate.
it's where we have all our support staff behind us.
Yeah.
And it's also where all our franchisees come for their inductions. But even before they sign on, one of the requirements is to come and meet us over here and see what we do behind the scenes.
Yeah, and I've had the pleasure of going over there, everyone, all the builders out there that are listening in today. And I'll tell you what, it's a one of a kind experience. Like there's not too many builders that have a facility like this and in a position like this. And I said to Greg, actually, I don't know if he just got honked at because they're pretty popular over there, mate.
It's honked up by the boat. By the boat, Aaron. By the boat. Yeah.
Mate, look at that, and I'd been over there and just the facilities that you guys have, it's second to none, isn't it, Greg, too, mate? Like I'm allowed to talk from personal experience. And I said to Greg before the podcast, he showed me, he flicked on his camera and I'm like, hey, I want to be back over there with you. It's a great environment. You've got a great team, and you walk through that Stonewood Homes office and you're like, it's a professional outfit. It's probably one of the most professional I've seen.
Right, Aaron. Should I head inside?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, let's go inside. That's the outside, guys, and we'll head inside and continue this podcast. Mate, so Greg's just gotten into reception now. He's taken that short walk from the wharf, and this is inside, mate. What's going on in there?
So we've got our, obviously, the big Stonewood sign up behind our reception chairs.
Yeah.
And if we come in through here, we've got the Stonewood Homes support office just going through just very, very quickly right through. So we've got a big team here and a number of meeting rooms, which I should probably head into for a bit more quiet.
Yeah. And Stonewood Group, if you don't mind us talking about that, Greg, the Stonewood Group. So for those who don't understand, there's Stonewood Homes and there's Stonewood Group, but the Stonewood Group are a phenomenal business in itself as well, aren't they, Greg? You supported well from a really larger group that you're part of.
Yeah, so I suppose the Stonewood Homes brand goes back to 1987 and was acquired by what is now the Stonewood Home Group. Yeah. I suppose what's special about the name is the name in New Zealand does mean quality. It's well recognised. That it's now been a name that's been adopted by the larger group. And the larger group, just a bit of background, they own hotels. In fact, they just opened their latest hotel in Queen Street in New Zealand, which is a 320 room hotel, which they handed over. And the first guests moved in only on Monday to the Radisson Red. A lot of backing behind Stonewood Homes.
Yeah. And that's another impressive piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
So, Greg,
so one of these quieter meeting rooms over here.
Yeah. And let's get in and start having a chat about everything, mate. That was very cool. Thank you so much for the tour for the audience, because as you can see, I think that's really important. You get to see, I guess talking from my experience, I remember first working in a bit of a consultancy role with you guys.
Yeah.
And I walked into that like this means business. I sat down. The first thing that happened was I had, a franchise focus group team that came to me, and we started talking about what we were going to do. You always had that interaction with franchisees and having that collaborative sort of outlook on things. I know you know where you're going, Greg, and where the brand needs to go, but that collaborative approach is something that I really loved about what you do there, Greg. Is that something that you continually driving?
Yeah, no, we still do that to this
Yeah.
day. We have what we refer to as a focus group. It's the franchisees representing the full group. So we have
Mm.
four representatives sitting. It now goes across Australasia, both New Zealand and Australia, are
Mm.
representing the interests as one group. But in terms of very much when you say collaborative, the new franchisees on Australia, we're actually asking them for very much to be part of what the Stonewood brand shapes and forms in the Australian market. We are very close, New Zealanders and Australians, but
Mm.
there are differences. So we recognise those differences and very much are seeking input from those on the ground in Australia, and will continue to do so.
Yeah, well, as I said, I had the podcast with Sean the other day, and honestly, what I love about you, mate, is some leaders jump on here and they'll say it and don't do it in practice, and we later find out before you even say that. We've got Sean on here saying this is how it is. He's loving his time on here with Stonewood Homes. So, mate, that's pretty cool. But when you look at a small builder and being the general manager of a large franchise, what do you believe that the franchise structure gets right for a small builder that they couldn't do otherwise with themselves?
And for a small builder, I mean, they're a builder. That's typically what they are.
Mm.
And what we're offering them is, I suppose, a business model. So they bring their skills, which is the ability to build quality homes efficiently, but the leads and how those leads are managed is something that they typically don't have a background in. So
Yeah.
that's very much what we bring. We bring the business systems to the builder.
Yeah, yeah. I remember Greg and our time working together that there was you got franchises, new franchises are jumping on in New Zealand as well, not just in Australia. You're continually growing this thing, and people want to be a part of it. But
Good.
there was one particular franchise, I forget the gentleman's name, but he said to me, I was over at a conference, and he's like, "Like a business in a box."
Yeah, that's often been the express business in a box. The systems from inquiry right through to handover is
Yeah.
where we focus. So we're not going to teach someone how to build. We expect them to bring very much that part of the
I love
knowledge
it.
to the equation. But in all other areas of the business, we have systems. Even in terms of builder, we have specialized, customized project management tools, which do help the building side as well, but not how to hammer in a nail, so to speak.
Yeah. And as you just said and pointed out correctly so, Greg, they know how to build. It's how to be business people. And one of the things that I was really impressed with is some of the systems that you've got in place there over there that you brought in as general manager. Could you tell us a little bit about those systems, Greg, if you don't mind?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we have systems from capturing the inquiry right through to handover. But the
Yep.
system that is probably the one that we would focus on in terms of bringing the biggest benefit is a system known as HomeEye.
Yeah.
And that allows the builder or their salespeople to work with standard plans. We have over 270 standard plans in Queensland, and those are designed for Queensland. Base design
Yeah.
are for that. But what makes this tool special is you can imagine the plan of a home and you can simply drag a wall out. So if you want to make the double garage into a triple garage, you can drag that wall out. It will then calculate the full bill of materials for that house, puts it into a 3D model so you can look at it. You can then change the cladding to a different type of cladding and so forth, whilst automatically in real time updating the bill of materials and costings. So it allows the salesperson to very quickly go, hey, everyone that builds with us wants to customize their home. And we will do it from scratch if required. But the best thing would be to pick one of the 280 plans that best suits the customer's needs and then put their stamp of their own requirements onto that plan. The sales consultants within Stonewood Homes have this great tool to very quickly go, hey, yep, if we make those changes, an estimate of the cost would be, and it's very, very close to what the actual cost will be. And then from there, we
Wow.
can issue a contract through the same tool. the pictorial specification of all the things included in it.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, made it sound very, very obviously very fast. There's a lot more behind the scenes, but yes, it is. Um, it's a game changer.
It is, Greg, and I got to see it a little bit with my own eyes. When you implemented the system, and then I was at Sean's office at Sunshine Coast. He took me through the system, and for builders out there, we had a builder on the other day, and I said, "What makes a good builder?" And they said, "Someone who's profitable, someone who knows their prices." And I was like, "Fuck, that is the oddest answer I've ever heard, but the right answer." Because if you aren't profitable and you're not making money, number one, you're not going to survive. And then he was saying how important that estimation and the pricing is. That's why I'm excited for this podcast. I was hoping that you wouldn't mind speaking about home buyer, Greg, because as you said, mate, I think it solves all of those sort of problems that you see a lot of builders, the communication with the client, because it gives a full breakdown of all materials.
And as we said before, Aaron, it's that business in the box
Yeah.
applied to building. So I know you say, hey, a builder, very much if they're not profitable, they don't have a good business. They still may actually be a good builder, but they don't have a good business. And that's, I suppose, what we bring to them is that you can be a good builder and still have a bad business. And no one wants to have a bad business.
Yeah. And Greg, I think you may have figured out that I need to change my brand name or some sort of tagline, mate. You are completely correct, because this is what I'm finding out doing the good builder, mate. And we know each other a little bit personally, so this is a bit of we're able to talk to each other fairly openly, mate. But I'm running around and I thought, what makes a good builder? I'm running around going, you're all good builders. You're pretty good builders. Like, I can't do what you do. You can, like you said, you can do the job. I'm not saying that you are bad, but you're not so good at the business side. And that is where I see that franchise benefit sort of come in. Mate, along the way, you probably have a few independent builders that you talk to, and they kind of go, why would I pay the franchise fees as well? Just being really open, mate. And we talked to a few builders. What's the difference? What do you get as value as part of those franchise fees? I think that needs to be talked about, if you don't mind, Greg, because I just saw what you guys do from a marketing perspective, for example, for your local franchisees. And any local builder out there doing it on their own doesn't get the same sort of service, or being able to actually even do the stuff that you're able to do as part of a franchise network as your own, mate. So, could you tell me a little bit about what the fees are?
It's a great question. It's definitely top of mind for anyone that's inquiring with us as a potential franchisee. Is why would I pay out what they perceive some of their margin to Stonewood Homes? There's two components to the fees. The fees that we take for the likes of marketing, which go directly back into marketing, very much I'd say it's not really a fee. You're advertising more efficiently with your money than what you could do yourself. So that's the benefit of the marketing side. We will spend your money more efficiently than what you would do if you were just doing it as a local branded builder. There's another part of this. So we supply, as part of the franchise fees, these systems. So the systems are Homo, which we've mentioned, becomes part of it. So all the software needed to run the business. So we have software in terms of a CRM system. We have then that leads into this Homi system. That leads into then a project management system. We have other systems such as Xero plugged into it as well. All that software is part of the fee structure. So once again, we're providing systems and tools way more efficiently than you could buy off the shelf yourself, or in some cases, you just can't buy them. So you don't have access to them. So you're getting that. And then the remainder of the so-called fee structure is the support office costs that actually run into that. So, and of course, we're a business. We also like our builders to be profitable. We want to be profitable. And there's then the final part is obviously, so we actually have a business to continue as well. And all of that, though, all those fees, ultimately, if it's the right applicant or the right builder, they'll actually realize that actually it's costing them less, or their margins are better because they're actually paying for the structure we offer, which is more efficient than what they would provide themselves.
I totally agree, Greg. As I said, I've seen your operation, and even from the perspective of, I think that was a really good point. But one that you said was you're able to access things that you're not able to access elsewhere. And then two, like I think IT there, I'll be fairly open. it was chalk and cheese between even consulting for your business and then some of those smaller builders, which I think are the guys that and girls that would really benefit from that franchise structure. Greg.
Yeah, and there's definitely it's not for everyone. And one of
No.
the things that we're going out there, we're not it's not in any advertising, but very much we're targeting builders that have the aspiration to build between 20 and 50 homes.
Yeah.
So, if you only want to do one or two homes a year, no, it's not worth it for the cost of the systems. That's not. But likewise, if you're wanting to do 100 homes a year, you've got potentially the scale to actually put some of those systems in yourself, and there's a slightly different business model. So we're very, very clear when people come to inquire, look, if
Good
you're,
point.
if you're already doing 100 homes a year, like, we're going to be finding it a hard job to sell our package to you. So that's kind of what we're aiming for. And another thing you mentioned, and your brand name is a good builder. One thing that's focused on, and no one buys a house from what they believe is a builder that's going to do a shoddy job or not a quality. You'll hear within us and our competitors using the word quality, quality, quality. But let's say that's a given. Of course, no one's going to deal with someone they don't perceive as a quality builder. But what makes a good builder is in the eyes of the customer. And often a good quality builder thinks that's all the customer wants. No, what the customers want is communication. They want the ability to make changes. They want people to support them along their journey. And that's kind of that business side. Who's going to judge whether we had a good experience? It's the customer. And we know from the surveys that we conduct with the customers during the build process that there will be changes. There will be some times when it's maybe a little bit stressful. And how do you actually deal with that as the builder is going to be understanding the customer's point of view. And ultimately, you've heard it before, under promise, over deliver, or exceed their expectations. So to exceed the expectations, you've got to make sure you manage and understand their expectations, and then exceed them. And then they'll go, hey, they were a great builder because they're delighted because they got more than possibly what they expected. And just as an aside, we're going to be celebrating that ethos later this year when we introduce some awards, which is going to be fully judged by the customers, not by an independent architect or builder. It will be judged by our customers.
Are you serious?
Well, who is it for an architect to say that you live in a stunning house? We believe it's a customer. They believe their house is stunning. It's a stunning house.
I love that because I won't name any associations, and I shouldn't, but there's a few associations that have said to me, you go around and, they look pretty, but, the customers aren't real happy, and they go in the customer's house and putting it out there, and then they award them at the ceremonies. But this is, and this is what I found fascinating about you, Greg, and Stonewood Homes, as I worked with you for a little while, that I was like, you look at things so differently. There's a lot, you weren't just going to put in any old software for your builders. You were like, okay, what's the builder's problems? Pricing, transparency with the customer. How do we make this happen in a piece of software? Bang, home I. Then this sort of thing. How do you become a good builder? Not by some architect saying, oh, mate, you're a good builder. That looks really nice. You become a good builder when a client goes, you're a good builder. I love my home. Who would do that? I've never heard of that, Greg. That's not crazy. I didn't mean it in that way, mate. I meant it in you do open yourself up, and you don't seem too worried. Obviously it shows the mark of a good builder.
Yeah, and they're celebrating, and I think everyone in every business knows that referrals are far better than paid advertising.
Yeah.
And if people love their home, they'll give referrals. The experience of building a home, because we're very much building homes for customers as opposed to building a home and then selling it. We're building them for customers. It's their home. It's their customization on it. They are the ones that are going to judge whether they recommend us or not. And part of that is their experience. So yes, they'll get a quality home. They will from, most any builder they're dealing with, they'd expect a quality home. But do they get the home that they wanted?
Wow, mate. See, and again, if guys and girls listen to what sort of Greg's sort of saying here, all of the stuff he's been saying is the stuff you get a benefit as a franchise, isn't it, Greg? All that stuff's very hard to figure out by yourself. And then you can't really have an award ceremony if you're not part of a network to be able to do that. Because I see, I remember you saying to me that, the awards that we give as Stonewood Homes, you should be proud of as franchisees because you're up against some of the best builders in New Zealand. When you're over in New Zealand at the time, not in Australia. And I remember you saying, hey, as, on team, get them badges, give them badges, put that on there because it shows like amongst a very successful franchise network are some of the best. And
Yeah, that's
it's very cool, mate. You look at things very differently.
you mentioned that. That's obviously another reason why people potentially join a franchise group is that connection with colleagues. If you run your own business, you don't have colleagues. You have no one to bounce stuff off. So you're actually joining a network of like-minded people. People form long-lasting friendships from it, but they
Yeah.
also form really good close business associates that think like them, that they'll
Yeah.
actually then bounce their issues or opportunities off. And they keep telling us, the conferences, what they get the biggest benefit from is networking with these colleagues.
And you see it, Greg, mate. You see it. It actually, Sean spoke about on the podcast we just did, and he was talking about Chris Carton and the guys at Timaru, who are the largest and most trusted builder in their region. And he was saying, maybe I shouldn't say this because what goes on tour stays on tour, but they were doing what's Titanic front of the ship. I think Sean was Little Spoon and Chris was Big Spoon. And then the other thing, Greg, was, despite the fun and antics that you have on tour, we've been on a couple together. And it was so cool. But the other thing was, he said, I call Chris Carton. He's in Timaru, like South New Zealand, South Island. And we talk about stuff sometimes. And I'm like, that is so cool, man. Like the group, I was part of another group, as you know, and like New Zealand and Australia were very segmented, just being really honest on the podcast. And we knew that, New Zealand were doing good things. We were doing good things in Australia, but no one wanted to talk to each other. They were like, nah, we're New Zealand, we're Australia. It doesn't, it does work, but no, we're going to do our own thing. We're going to do our own thing. And we were the same thing because I used to go across there all the time. But then, with what you're doing there, Greg, it's like all of them are just going, we're not Australia, we're not New Zealand, we're Stonewood Homes. And we're going to do this together.
And that's very much Australasian.
Yeah.
And hey, there is differences between
Yeah.
Australia and New Zealand, but there's also differences between South Queensland and North Queensland. There's differences
Mate.
between Auckland and the Southern Alps of Wanaka and Stonewood.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of variations in terms of the designs vary throughout New Zealand. They vary
Absolutely.
throughout even Queensland. Forget about the rest of Australia. We will take that into account, but we do want to have franchisor as a Stonewood. Yep, you're part of an Australasian team. If it works for Sean to lean on Chris Carton or vice versa, then it works for them. And that's what we find is that it's not always the obvious relationships that form. They can be this split between South and North Island or Australia and the South Island.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah, that's what I love, Greg. Well, mate, it sounds very exciting with the things that are going on at Stonewood Homes. So could you tell me, who have you got in Australia now, Greg, and who's coming up, mate?
Yeah, so you've mentioned Sean a couple of times. So Sean Hewitt heads up Sunshine South franchise for Stonewood Homes. And we've got Ian and Dee, Carrie and Toowoomba, been going for just over a year now. They're loving it. We're loving it. They're getting the sales, they're building homes, and it's going really well. And now we're kind of entering the next phase of bringing on more franchisees. We have franchise in Townsville starting in March.
Cool.
But, hey, business is business. Unfortunately, last week he informed me that the building he's just been moving into and just done the deck out, it's one of 6. The building at the far end of the 6 got torched. His building would be okay, but there's so much heat damage that it's a knockdown. So he's now rapidly looking for new premises. But he will still open in March. And then we've got another couple in the pipeline. We're going through due diligence. So one thing we do with anyone that's looking to become a franchisee, yes, we have a number of conversations. We show them the home eye. We get them all excited about what it could be. And then we go, hey, before we go any further, you want to do your due diligence. That due diligence requires them to meet with at least 2 other franchisees face to face. They can hear it exactly from them. It requires them to come to our support office here to see what happens in the background, and we will visit them. So before you actually sign up, you've got to put a bit of time in, and we don't want the franchisees. We want them to make the right decisions for them, regardless of if they end up signing up to Stonewood Homes. And likewise, we want to make sure we bring on the right partners.
Yeah, mate. Again, I didn't want to talk too much because I wasn't directly involved or anything, but around the traps when I was doing a bit of work with you, I heard how you were doing it, and that's precisely it. And that's the other thing that I loved. You set the foundation, I think, really well over here in Australia. You were really considered about where you're going and who you were going to bring on. You set them up well. As I said, Toowoomba's flying. The amount of times I look at their Instagram and frame's going up or a slab's going down, I'm like, what the hell's going on out there? In a good way, because like you're relatively new and you're building away. There's always so much going on, and then same with Sean. So it sounds very exciting for Townsville.
And so we're really, so we're going to that point. Australia's a big place. Just to clarify, we've got these 280 designs that have been designed by a Queensland designer for
Yeah,
Queensland. Whilst
absolutely.
would entertain anyone looking outside of Queensland, it's not what we're focused on at the moment.
Yeah.
There's differences.
Oh,
So so we're really looking to get that network going through Queensland and with the right people.
great.
As I said, we're another two currently in doing that due diligence phase.
Wow.
Got another few that are seriously looking at it. So
Wow. Yeah. And I think that's a really good way to do it, Greg. Locate yourself in that one state, make sure they've got all the support they need there. And it's probably nice to have, one, you know, Toowoomba's not far from the Sunshine Coast. I'm sure you're going to get Sunshine Coast North very soon. If you haven't, I know a few builders out there. You guys should check out Sunshine Coast North. I would, because up here, Gympie to Noosa, you're going to have a field day if you're working with Stonewood Homes. It's going to be good. But there's a whole bunch of different, and I think that's really cool, Greg, the way you've done it, because they're close enough that they can see each other physically as well, and I think that's a big part of it.
it's interesting that you're speaking, like an Australian in terms of distance. Very much, we understand that. People prepared to travel definitely further in Australia.
Oh,
It's a
absolutely.
big place. Queensland's bigger than New Zealand. And I know how big Australia is. I once did a tour around Australia, and over 3 months covered 17,000 k.
Yeah.
I know how big it is, but people are prepared to drive. So you're right. The distance in Australia, for Australians, they will catch up and meet definitely.
100%, Greg. Well, mate, in terms of areas that you're looking at, are there any areas for some of the builders out there that you'd be interested in having a talk to anyone about? Yeah, that you're targeting at the moment, Greg, in Queensland?
Yeah. So, I mean, as I said, the whole of Queens,
Okay.
at Queensland, we're targeting. Obviously, there's some pockets of Townsville as its own little geographic area,
Yeah.
and there's nothing either side of it until you get to the next larger town. But once you get into that Brisbane, so from the Gold Coast up to north of the Sunshine Coast, there's an area adjacent to an area, right out, through to Toowoomba, or even
Yeah.
even slightly more inland than Toowoomba. We've actually marked out a potential area as
Wow.
well. So if someone goes, hey, they're outside those areas and they think they can make it work, we'd look at it.
Yeah.
We'd be open to that as well.
Oh, mate, I'll tell you what, Greg, I'll tell you my hot pick. If I was going to be a builder, I did try, but why I'm doing this is because I'm not a good builder in terms of craftsmanship with my hands. If I were a builder out there, I would get Jimboomba, Ipswich, or somewhere in that area, mate. Like any Jimboomba builders out there, mate, there's a lot happening out there. There's a big growth corridor. There's a lot of opportunities. So any builders that are looking to scale and have a shot at this, I'd have a talk to Greg and his team. At the end, we'll put some details down, but I would definitely have a talk with Greg and his team sooner rather than later, mate, because even the government's planning to open up a lot of land there. So, mate, if that was me, that's what I'd be doing, Greg.
And exactly, and a talk costs nothing. We're happy to talk through. Another good area, I mentioned those. If you're right about those, is the likes of Moreton Bay. There's some significant subdivisions going in many of the areas within.
You know it better than
We've
me,
got
mate.
Olympics coming, Queensland. It's just all go. We can see that there.
Yeah. Well, if you don't mind me asking, Greg, this will just be interesting for our listenership, actually. What's the difference between New Zealand and Australia now? Like, is it still pretty tough over in New Zealand in terms of the market? This is the cool thing that you, as part of Stonewood Homes, will get, because you get insights from New Zealand. Like, that's cool.
Yeah, no. So there's a couple of things. I think the legislation in Australia just makes it easier to build. You've got first owner support packages from the government there, which we don't have in New Zealand. You've got lots of buildable land, in terms of flat land. That just keeps the cost down. You've got lower compliance in terms of the actual requirement for sign off
Oh, wow.
during the build process. It's actually just an easier environment to build in from a legislation point of view.
Yeah,
And
wow.
then in New Zealand, which is probably the big difference also, is Queensland has got a net positive migration from other parts of Australia. So it's growing. In New Zealand, we had some significant growth, and then it's from immigration from offshore, and that's fallen away. So probably what's really the big difference at the moment is it's a legislation making it easier to build in Australia, and there's just a demand for housing as better in Queensland than it is in New Zealand. Of
Yeah.
course, there's pockets of New Zealand that are doing exceptionally well. But
Yeah.
overall, it's that lack of demand because we don't have a high immigration at the moment.
Yeah, mate, that is fascinating. It's yeah, I think it's really interesting to hear and to see those insights because over here at the moment we're having the great immigration debate. I think about I probably shouldn't talk too much about this, but I'm okay, with it. And it's like I don't know, Greg. We need skilled immigration and all that sort of thing, and it keeps the market going. But I understand we can't keep up with demand. But then you hear what's sort of happening in New Zealand, and there were times when I know when COVID hit and you and I were working fairly closely, things, but no, totally outside of Stonewood Homes' control, out of the entire industry's control, it just falls off a cliff, doesn't it? Because it's a small population, it's a tougher, and that was the other thing that I think I want to raise in this podcast, mate, is that you navigated, and actually, it's a good point, mate. You helped to navigate the franchise networks through that COVID period. Remember all the signage, remember the communication. No one knew what was going on. Like myself in my own business, I didn't know if I had a business, but you kept us on. So thank you because you kept me afloat. But, beyond that, Greg, like I didn't know what the hell to do as a business. I was turning up to the office, getting kicked out. Cops are on the road. I don't know what the hell's going on. I was trying to get the job done, but with a supported franchise network. I remember, we were getting emails and requests and you were doing a lot yourselves and stuff. And you were like, oh, could you, do up this sign for us? We need this for every franchise across their build sites. We need this, we need that. Bang, 24 hours, you're ready to build again. Imagine doing that by yourself, Greg.
Yes, yeah. Hopefully, we never have to go it again.
No.
There's been a lot of learnings from definitely
Yeah.
the impact of COVID itself, and then
Mm.
the kind of unknown of the market and the stress that brings on businesses. To then finding that we had unprecedented demand, and now you can't get product. And so you've got supply issues. So you go from now, I've got the demand, but I can't build your house because I can't get all the products required. And then the tail of it being then demand stopped once product availability was okay. So yeah, it's been a rocky road, and I think that's behind us now. And that's another
Yeah.
reason
Oh,
why I love Queensland is it's got a long term positive future backed by the
good point.
government and backed by the initiatives such as taking on the Olympics. If I could see why people want to live in Queensland and why you've got the internal migration in north
Yeah.
as well. So people from Melbourne and Sydney, as New Zealanders are as well. New Zealand, they typically leave for Queensland. They don't leave for other parts of Australia. That's the most common area that they're
Yeah.
heading to as well.
Mate, absolutely, mate. So well thought. Everything, as I said, everything you guys do over there yourself, everything's so well thought, mate. So love what you're doing. I just have a couple more questions left for you, mate, but I would love to have you back on and we'll continue to have your franchisees on and talk to them about their journey because, Sean, yesterday, as he was talking about, he goes, I'm happy to be a living case study and show you how successful I'm going to be. And I'm like, let's do it, mate. Like, that sounds cool to me. But number one, Greg, how do the builders out there get in touch with you guys if they'd like a chat? Who should they get in touch with? What's the best email? Or do they head to a website so they can inquire around, looking at some of those areas? But if the first gym builder, go for it, I reckon.
Yeah. Hey, I suppose it's old phrase, Google it, or Stonewood. Yes,
Yeah.
there's on our website, there's a page dedicated to franchise recruitment. You can fill in your details.
Awesome.
You then hear from the lovely Mandy, who's worked both for us in New Zealand, Australia. She's also worked as a sales manager for a franchisee many years ago. So she knows the business inside and out.
Yeah.
And she would be the one that would initially engage with anyone, have
Yeah.
that chat.
Awesome.
We used to say, hey, we'd market it, have a muffin with Mandy, type, have a casual chat.
Yeah.
Nothing, just to
And
find
she's great.
what's pressing, and she would take it through. If you're keen for a bit more of a formal discussion, we'd then get you to sign an NDA, and that's when we can show you some of the tools such as Home Eye,
Wow.
still without any commitment at all. It's still, just jump online. We can show that very quickly, and then if you're still keen, we can take the next step from there.
Wow. Even I don't want builders to waste your time, mate, but even to take a peek under the hood of what they're doing there is pretty interesting. I'll put a few links, and if you don't mind, Greg, up to Sean's office and shoot on that Home Eye and put it up with a few quick links for builders to look at so they don't waste your time and they can have a look at because
Hey,
it's
look,
sort of
no one's going to waste our time. Mandy's happy to have a chat with anyone.
anyone. Cool.
And it's not a waste of her time because she gets to understand a bit more about the market as people speak.
Yeah.
Love to hear from someone
All
that's
builders.
seriously going, hey, how could I build my business? So probably
Love
the
it.
people where ultimately would benefit most by it is someone that's already building, maybe has their own business, doing maybe 5 homes a year or something, going, I'd love to build 20, but I just don't know how to get there.
Yeah.
That would be the ideal type of mindset to come on for. I'd love to be at 20, don't know how to get there. And that's where we would come in and show you how.
Love it, mate. And you absolutely will. And my last question for you, but I think you answered it early on in the piece, actually, and I really loved your answer. And I was like, oh, he's already answered this question. But anyway, mate, we're called the good builder. Greg, what do you think? And you've seen it all, man. What do you think makes a good builder?
You did it. As I said, it's in the eyes of the customer,
I
and
love
a
it.
good builder is one that they'd refer to their friends and family.
Short,
It's
sharp.
as simple as that.
It is. It is, Greg. You said it in there, you get a lot of referral builds in your network because you do a great experience. You've got your finger on the pulse of experience, all that sort of stuff. You've got the pricing tools, mate. I think you've got a really good business over there. Wish you all the luck. I'm sure, as I said, we're going to have you back on and track what's going on. But mate, this has been fascinating, even to talk about a few things that I didn't know about. And as I said, it's been a pleasure having you on because I personally work with this man and this business, and they're a great business, and you'll be well supported if you're looking for a franchise network. So if I get my license, I'll take you in Boomba, Greg. But other than that, mate, I will see you next time.
Thank you very much, Aaron. It's been a
All right.
delight to be on your
Yeah,
program. Cheers.
cool. Thanks, Greg.